In this video, we're going to design a toolbox in Sketchup, and I was given this idea from Ben at Ben Sawmill, and I'll put a link to his channel in the descriptions below. Please go check him out. Let's say we're going to make a very simple plain box, and then we'll work on putting a handle on it. And so we'll just do some 1-inch thick boards. So I'm going to first zoom in. I'm clicking on zoom again. I'm going to zoom in a little more. And if you want to center yourself on a certain spot, you just hold the magnifying glass over that spot and double click, and it centers the screen right exactly where you're pointed. Then here I'm just going to click down, push up to zoom in, and it doesn't look like I'm zooming in, but I am. And it doesn't look that way because there's nothing there to really zoom in on. So the first thing, I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and that pretty much is what I use to make most things. Here I'm just going to start by pulling it out, and rather than clicking and finalizing right where I want it right there, if you look down in the lower right on the screen, it says dimensions, and hopefully you can read that. I'm going to escape out of this just so I can point to it. So down here in the corner, you can see where it says dimensions. When you click to create your rectangle, at least like at the beginning of a triangle here, and I'm not clicking, what you would normally do is if you want to just stretch it to the point where you want, if you look in the lower right while I'm moving that mouse back and forth, you can actually see it's telling you how big your triangle is. So it's 1 foot 7 inches by, was it 1 foot 4 5/16. So rather than me actually trying to move this till it's exactly where I want it, the easiest thing to do is you can actually type your dimensions directly in. And so if we are going to do 6 inches tall, so what I normally do too is I'll stretch it out so I know if the first number or the second number is the longer of the two. So if we want a 6-inch tall box, we'll just say maybe 8 inches wide, just make a small block. It goes by inches and lets you specify. The vertical dimension is the longer one, which is the first number. So I am going to say 8 inches wide, and then you put a comma in here to get your second dimension, which is 6 inches high. So you can see in the lower right, so you press 8, 6, that's going to be 8 inches long by 6 inches tall. Press enter and it creates your rectangle. So you can see how far we were zoomed out actually. So I'll click on the zoom tool, double click to center me, and then just click and push forward, and that's going to bring me closer. I'm going to click on the hand to kind of position myself a little bit better. So I'm using the orbit tool to turn myself around. I'm going to bring myself onto the other side. So you just drag from left to right and it'll take you one way or the other. And actually, I'm going to use the orbit tool to turn us sideways a little bit so you can see what's happening. There we go. Now you'll be able to see what we're actually doing. So we'll click on push pull. I'm going to choose this side, and you'll see as I pull to the right, that 2D is now a 3D object. So I'm pulling out, but I haven't clicked to confirm how far I want to go out. Same thing, just like creating a rectangle. In the lower right, you'll see it says distance now. That's how far out you want to pull it. So if we're going to have an 8x6 board, 1 inch thick, we're going to pull out 1 inch. So all you to do is press the number 1, press enter. Now you have an 8-inch wide, 6-inch tall board that's 1 inch thick. And we're zoomed in pretty far, so it looks bigger than it actually is. So I'm going to zoom out a little. I'm going to use the hand tool, pull us down here. So I want to turn this into a component. So right now, if I try to move this, you can see what happens. It doesn't know that this is one part, one piece. It just knows I clicked on that line and it's pulling that line out and changing the whole shape of the thing. So I'm going to press escape to deselect that. And then in order to turn this into a component, to tell SketchUp that this is a part, you choose the select tool and you triple click on it, and it's going to select everything that is touching what you triple click on. Under the edit menu, you also see there's this thing called make component. If you click on that, it's going to bring you up to a create component dialog box, and here you can name your component. I usually don't, but you can name it. So if you wanted to call it end panel for your box, you could do that. You could give it a name, click create. You can also just press enter, and now it's created this into a component. Click on the move tool now. See when I hover over it, it's giving you points where you can actually move it from. So if I wanted to rotate it, I could grab one of these and turn it. I could use this just to move the whole item, or you can actually pick an edge to reference from. So say I wanted to, I'm going to use the orbit tool, pull us down here. So say I wanted to line this side, this corner of the box up with this line instead of that corner, I would choose the move tool, click on that corner, then move over here to the side, and now I can use that to line that right up with the edge. You click again and it moves it, and you'll notice now it moved the whole component because it knows now that this is actually one part. It's not just, a bunch of lines and filled in space. So now that we have a component, it looks pretty plain being white. You can work with your objects that way. Personally, I like to have a little color in them while I'm working, because it gives me the feel of I'm actually working with something. And so I will choose wood. Here, we'll pick cherry. So you click on the material, then you click on, and it actually, you'll notice it automatically picks the paint bucket. When you choose one of these materials, you click on your component and it colors it to the color that you chose. So now we want to get off of the paint bucket tool. And what I want to do is I like to build my project right in the center of all the axes in SketchUp. So what I want to do is bring this down here. So I'm going to use the move tool, click on this corner. I'm going to bring it down and then click on it. So you don't click and drag, you actually click and then move it and then click again and it locks it into place. So now I have my panel. So now we're going to need another one of these on the other end. Let's just say we're going to make the box twice as long as it is wide. So say we'll make it 16 inches, or let's just say 18. I'll just do butt joints on the sides here. So I'll put a 16-inch board in here, making it say 18 inches long. The two ways to do it is you can make the part brand new, or you can take this part, make a copy of it, and then edit that part. And since it's already the height that we want, I'll just need to change the length. I'm just going to make a copy of this part. So to do that, you click on the move tool, then you click on the item itself from where you want to drag it out from. So I'm just going to pick this corner, it doesn't really matter. Click on it, but then before I move it, press the control key. It clones itself. Then you click again to drop it right there. So now we don't have the board facing the right way that we want. We want it to butt up against here and we need to stretch it. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the orbit tool. Click here and drag down to pull me up and over the top. So now I'm looking down at it and I can take it and I can spin it around. And doing that, I can use the move tool to do that. So when I get in here and I hover over one of these reference points, you can see it brings up the circle that enables you to move it around. So you click on this reference point. I'm not dragging, I'm just clicking and then turning it. And then you can actually feel it kind of locking in. So when it gets to that final 90 degree, you can see it kind of locks into that spot. Click, now it commits you to that spot. I'm going to orbit back down, click and hold. I'm going to push up, which is going to bring me back down alongside of it. And if you drag to the right, it moves the object to the right and you're kind of moving to the left. So I got myself kind of in a position now where I can bring this piece over to here and then butt it up against there. And then after we'll stretch it and make it as long as we want. So I'm going to choose the move tool. I'm going to bring it over and it'll actually snap to the corner so you know you're butted up against it. Boom. Click to commit to it. And now I'll use this orbit tool to show you we're butted right up against the corner of it. Now we know that this is 8 inches long because we just made a copy of this. So we want to extend that to 16 inches. So just like we did to make this board 1 inch thick, we're going to use the push-pull tool, and we're going to pull this end of the board 8 inches out, and that will make this board stretch to 16 inches long. Still be 6 inches wide, and it'll still be 1 inch thick, so we don't have to mess with any of that. We also won't have to redo the coloring. We won't have to make the component because it's already a component, so we're just going to edit it. To edit a component, select the select tool first. You double click on the component, and now you can see the other component over here is grayed out. So I pressed escape to escape out of the component edit mode. When we made a copy, whenever you make a change to a component that is a copy, it also changes the original. So if right now I edit this and pull it and stretch it out, it's gonna, and actually I'll show you that. I'll double click on it again, use the push pull tool, click on the end here, see how it's stretching the original? We don't want it to do that. So I'm gonna press escape and I'm gonna choose the select tool, press escape again to exit out of the component edit. What we want to do here is we select by clicking on that the copy, right click, and then there's this option that says make unique. This means it's basically, it says this component is now not a copy of anything. We're making it its own special part. Make unique. And now this is basically your component number 2. So you have this component and then the second component. Now if we double click on it, now we're in component edit mode. We'll use the push pull tool. We'll click on the end, and if you look down in the lower right, you can see it says distance 0 inches. As I pull it out, that increases. Now this isn't the full distance of the part, it's just how far are you pulling it. So we're going to push the number 8, pull it out 8 inches, press enter, and now we've pulled this part out 8 inches. You'll see the other original didn't move because now we've made this component unique to itself. So now that you've got what you want, this 8-inch board is now a 16-inch board. Choose the select tool and then press escape. Orbit tool, you can see we get our 16-inch board, our 8-inch board, 6 inches tall, 1 inch thick. Now the next two sides are going to be really easy because we already have those parts created. So we're just going to make a copy of each one of these and put them in the position we want them in. This is very simple, a lot easier than recreating the components again. That's one of the nice things about SketchUp is you can make a copy of something you already have. So click on the move tool and we know this part I want to line up. If I'm going to make a copy of it, I want to line up this corner with this corner and it'll be down here to make the other end panel. So we're going to click on it to select to move it. You can actually move it, put it in position and then press Control and it puts the original back. Then you have to click again to lock your copy into place. And now you have a copy here and there. Just keep in mind that any changes you make to either one of these is going to apply to the other side. So now we're going to make a copy of the side panel. I'm going to pick this corner because I know I want this corner to butt up with this corner. So I'll click on it. This time I'll hit Control ahead of time. Then you'll see it snaps right into that corner. Click on it to commit. And now we have our four-sided toolbox, and then we just need a bottom for it. So you can either know that this is 8 inches wide, and that's an inch thick, and that's an inch thick, so your bottom's going to have to be 8 inches minus an inch for each side, so it's going to be 6 inches wide. We know it's going to be the exact same length. We'll make the bottom a ½ inch thick. We know that the length is going to be the same. The color is going to be the same. So what I'm going to do, I like to do this a lot, is make a copy of this side panel because I can use it as the bottom. I just have to shrink it down. I'll click on move. The midpoint is another kind of snap to point. So if you hover over the middle part, it'll snap you right to it so you know you're in the dead center middle. It doesn't really matter for what I'm doing right now, but I'm going to do that anyway. So I press Control, click on it. I'm just taking a copy of it and pulling it aside for now until I get it to the final dimensions, and then I'll move it into place. So I'm going to use the, let's just say the hand tool. Before we edit this, we know that if we make changes to this, it's going to make changes to the original and any copies of it. So if I make a change to this, it's going to change both of those. We don't want to do that. We want to leave this 8 inches high. So what I need to do, select tool, right click the component, make unique, and now anything I do to this is only going to apply to that one part. We'll double click on it to get into component edit mode. The 6-inch height actually I think is going to work, right? Let me escape out of this just for the sake of seeing. I'm pretty sure you can actually just use your tape. I'll show you can use your tape measure here. I'm going to measure from one end to the other. We know this is going to be 6 inches anyways, but you can just showing how you can use the tape measure to confirm that. So tape measure tool, you click on it, you select the tool, you click on your starting point, just click, then your ending point, you don't click. If you click, it creates a line, or not really a line, but it's more of like a guide, like if you were taking a pencil and drawing on your wood as a reference. But I don't want to actually click to commit, I'm just doing this because I want to see the measurement. So you can see the measurement popped up in a little window, but also if you look in the lower right, you'll see it says length 6 inches. I'm going to press escape to deselect what I had. Now I'm going to measure this from top to bottom. That's 6 inches. So that's actually already at the dimension we needed. I'm going to select the select tool, double click to go into component edit mode, and we're going to use the push pull tool. And this time we're going to click on this face of the board, click on it once, push in, and you can see in the lower right corner I've pushed in 1/4 of an inch. Instead of pushing into my ½ inch to make this a ½ inch board, I'm just going to press 0.5. So you can see in the lower right corner, I chose 0.5, press enter, and it makes that board a ½ inch thinner. So now we know that it was a 1-inch board, now it's a ½ inch. And I'm pressing escape. We know we have to, for the floor of this toolbox, and if anyone has any questions, while I'm working on all this, if I'm going too fast, let me know. If you have any questions along the way, let me know and I'll be happy to stop and answer them. So I'm going to use the move tool. Or actually, I'm going to first use the orbit tool to get me in a better position. I want to spin this board to the other dimension to spin it flat. So I'm going to use the move tool. I know from these little plus signs here, if I pick on one of them, you just click once on it, you move it over, and it's going to spin it on the same reference point anyway, and it's just one less click than if you were to use the rotate tool. So I'm going to use the move tool again, which I already have selected. Let's see, I'm going to click on that side, and I'm going to lift it. Actually, I'm going to push it down. So I'm just going to slide it down, click on it again to commit to it. So I have it down kind of on the same plane of where I want to put it, or close to it. And I'm going to use the orbit tool. I'm going to grab and push myself down. So pushing up to go down here. So we know that we want this corner. I'm gonna choose the move tool because we're gonna move this into place now. I know I want this corner lined up exactly with this corner. Once that's lined up with this, we know that this whole piece is going to be right in position where it should be. I'm going to move it over. So then I'm going to select that, click, and now it's in place. So I'm going to use the orbit tool, move us back up here so we can see the whole picture. We have our 4 sides and our bottom. So we have the kind of the base of the toolbox here. we're gonna put handle on this toolbox. We know this is 8 inches wide. If I want that center to be square and just kind of pulled up 4 inches wide. In order to determine exactly the placement of that, I am probably going to use the tape measure tool. And we know if it's 4 inches, there's 4 inches left of the board. You split that in half, you can have 2 inches of space on either side with a 4-inch section in the middle. So what I'm just going to do is hover over the midpoint on one end, click, and as I pull out, when you use the midpoint, you can see that line that I'm dragging. That's just an imaginary line. It's just like if you were going to use a pencil to mark where you're going to put your next piece. This is basically going to do the same thing for you. And you can see that it goes all the way across, so it's going to copy over to the other side, which really isn't going to matter because this end is a copy of the other side. So when we change this side, it's also going to change the other side for us, which in this case is actually going to be an advantage for us. So we're going to pull the tape measure out. We don't need to kind of get right to exactly where we want. We know we can just press 2. I want to go 2 inches in, press enter, and it puts that tape measure line right where I want it. So now I have a reference. So we're going to do the same thing from this side, hover over the midpoint, click on it, come out just a little bit. You can even just come out a hair, it doesn't matter. Press the number 2, press enter, and now it moved in that direction 2 inches. So we know that from here to here, because that's 8 inches, it's going to be 4 inches. So now what I can do is edit this component using those guidelines. So in order to edit this component, I need to get the select tool, double click on it. So here's a case where you would use the line tool. This time we want to actually mark our lines. We'll put that line there. So you click once, move over to where you want. We want it to show the X, which shows it's on the intersection. Click again. Now we have a line here and a line here. So we're going to use push pull and click on it once. Now when you'll see, we'll lift it up. You can also see the other side. Same thing's happening. Let's just go up 4 inches. So I'm going to press 4, press enter, and now we've gone up 4 inches. And we need to put a hole in here. I'm thinking maybe come down an inch and maybe put a 1-inch hole there, and then we'll later put a 1-inch dowel in it. So we want to stay in the component edit mode. We're going to choose the tape measure tool first because we need to come down an inch. I always like to use the midpoint just to start my line. Click on it, pull down. You can see that line's coming. So now we get the blue line. We're going to pull down just a little bit, and I'm just going to press 1, enter, and now we've got our 1-inch reference line. And then if we want it 1 inch wide, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to pull it down. So we went 1 inch down. We got a 1-inch hole. So that's going to be 2 inches. We want to press 2, enter. So we're going to want our hole right in between those two lines. And if it's a 1 inch and this is a 4-inch board, you have 3 inches left, split that. There's going to be an 1.5 inches on each side. So I'm going to do that again. Click on the edge, come over. I'm going to type 1.5, come over this side, click on it, bring it in, 1.5. And now we know our circle needs to be right inside of here. To make a circle, you actually are going to click in the center of it and pull it out. And so I want to know where that center of that circle is. Since it's a 1-inch circle, it's going to be a 1/2 inch down from this reference line. So I'm going to click on that line with my tape measure, pull down, and actually it snapped right on the 1/2 inch, but you could just type in 0.5, enter, and now you have your exact middle of where your dowel is going to go. So that's the center of your circle. We're going to go up to the shapes tool, but this time we're going to use the drop down, and we're going to choose circle. We choose the center of the circle, click on it, and you kind of just pull out. This case, it actually snapped right to the lines, which is convenient. Or you can type in 1/2 inch because you're pulling out a 1/2 inch to make a 1-inch diameter. So you see that you're pulling it out from the center a 1/2 inch because you're going to have 1/2 inch on either side to make that a 1-inch circle. So now that we have our circle, I'm going to press the escape key and then choose the push pull tool. I'll click on that. We have our circle. Now you can see when I hover over this, it selects everything within that space, not including the circle because the circle is closed. If we click inside of the circle, it chooses just the inside of the circle. I clicked on that. We're using the push-pull tool. If I push in, it's going to create a hole, but we want it to go all the way through. You can either push all the way through, or the easiest thing to do is just to press 1, enter, and that's going to push in 1 inch, which is basically going to push through the whole board. And you can see there's a hole. If I use the orbit tool and kind of push us down here a little bit, and you look off in the distance, got the same thing on the other side. The final step now, we got to put the handle. So the handle is simply going to be a dowel circle that's push-pulled out to the length we want. So we're still in component edit mode for this component, which we don't want to be. So I'm going to select the select tool, press escape, and you can see all these guidelines everywhere. Sometimes it gets to be messy if you're using a lot of guidelines for things. Under edit, you can just delete guides, and it cleans up the screen for you. Because I'm not very good at going back and deleting them when I'm done with them, so sometimes the screen gets messy. So we're going to create a dowel. We know this box is 18 inches long because we have an inch on either end for the thickness of the board, and we got this 16-inch board. So we're going to make a dowel that's 18 inches long and a 1-inch diameter. So to do that, we're basically going to draw a new circle, but we're going to draw that circle within this circle. So we get an inch from here to there, and then an inch circle. So I'm going to go from here down an inch and a half, 1.5. There's the center of our circle. And then this is 4 inches wide, so I want to go to the center. You have to go off of the line, click, and it's going to create a vertical line 2 inches over. And now we know this is the center of our circle. We'll use the circle tool this time, and it should be on the right plane this time. We're going to click, pull out just a little bit. I'm going to press 0.5. There. Sometimes it takes a little bit of finesse and fooling around with it to get it to do what you want to do. But now you can see we get a nice circle that's flush. We'll swing her over to this side. You can see that's closed in. We're going to use the push-pull tool. We're going to select that circle. We're going to pull to make our dowel. And then in the lower right, you can see distance 8 inches. I'm going to type 18, press enter, and now it made that dowel 18 inches long. So I'm going to press, this is where, not one in case I might use the zoom extents. This is the zoom extents. You click on that and it's going to pop you way back so you can get the whole box in your view. Then I'm going to use the orbit to kind of spin me around so I can see what I have. Now that I get that perspective, I'll click zoom extents again, and boom, it's going to center me right on my box. So you can see we now have a toolbox. We can leave the handle white, or we can make it a wood color. We'll use, I don't know, OSB, even though that's a dowel. That would be kind of weird having an OSB dowel, but just kind of for contrast here in the picture. This dowel isn't a component yet, and one way you'll know that is if I spin around over here, you can see that's still white. All it did was make the outside of the cylinder the color we asked. If it was a component, it would have colored the whole thing. So we're going to select the select tool, triple click on it. It selects the whole thing. Edit, make component. I'm just going to press enter. You can name it. I'll just name it handle. And now that's a component. Now if we take the color and click on it, it colors the end too, because it knows now this thing is a whole. Look at our final project here. Now we just have a clear picture of our box. We'll click away so it deselects that, and I'll use the orbit tool to kind of bring us around it, but now you can see we have a complete and finished project, all designed with all your dimensions and everything all right there that you need, and so you know what dimensions you need to cut everything. So it's all to scale. So now, and I'll show this later on in another video and project, when I go to cut my stuff, I can use my tape measure tool in SketchUp and say, well, let me see, how long was this board supposed to be? All right, it's 1 foot 4 inches, 16 inches. And how thick did that need to be again? 1 inch. So it's kind of handy. So you come in here, you design, it helps you kind of go ahead and cut all your parts ahead of time and then assemble it, because you can come in here and figure out exactly what you need for dimensions, shapes, sizes, and all that for all your parts. So you can go ahead and make them ahead of time and then assemble it how you like. That just kind of gives you a lot of the basic features and a lot of the basic tools in SketchUp to create kind of a simple project. So I'm just going to finish that up here, but I appreciate you sticking around, and so I hope this video helped with you getting started in SketchUp, and I will have some more videos out related to SketchUp and how to do other things. So I appreciate you watching, and I will see you guys all in the next video.